everyone.
Why doesn't every home in the UK have brand new solar panels? The number one reason is not about weather, sun.
Still taking gabapentin, amitriptyline, or duloxetine for nerve pain? What you're about to hear might
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
So if you want to make a remote income from home and you're a beginner, meaning right now you have a 9-to-5 job,
Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Will that work? Just this one? Yeah. I have a direct phone number.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees.
Sukama, can you hear
Please
me?
accept. Guru Maharaj, yeah, it is very, very low, Guru Maharaj.
Sukava, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you,
You
Guru
can't
Maharaj.
hear me, and I can't
Yeah.
hear her.
Okay. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Second,
Hare
Maharaj.
Krishna, Maharaj. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. I will welcome you all to His Holiness Candramauli Swami Maharaj's daily call. And I have to ask, what is the today's topic, Maharaj?
Let's see, we're just following in this series. Second canto, 8th chapter, the next verse.
27.
I don't know. I think
Yeah,
it,
our verse is 27, so I can share that screen with.
can you hear me okay?
Yes, little. Yeah, it's. I can hear you properly.
Okay. Yeah. This we don't need. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 8, verse 27.
Hare Krishna Mataji, can you zoom in a little bit?
You can't seem to.
Yes, Maharaj. You want to
Just,
see
I
everything.
want to get full screen, but I need to get the view first.
Yeah.
Okay, go to full screen on the bottom. Last one, no.
Yes.
No, it is full. Okay.
Yes. Okay, Maharaj.
And then this goes to,
Yeah. It's on the left hand side.
no,
Maharaj.
you
Sorry.
just go like this. And so,
Perfect.
okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 8, verse number 27. Sutta Uvacha Sa Upamantrito Rajan Sa Upamantrito Rajna. Do you have your phones there? Okay. Sa Upamantrito Rajna Atayamiti Satpatahe Ramarato Brisambrito Vishnuratena Samsadi Sutta Uvacha Sa Upamantrito Rajna Atayam iti satpatahe Amarato Brisambrito Vishnuratena samsadi. Suta uvacha. Vamantrito rajna. Vatayamiti satpatahe. Amarato vrisamprito. Vishnuratena samsadi. Chant. Sri Sutavacha. Upamantrito rajnaha. Kadayamiti satpatahe. Amarato visamprito. Vishnuratena samsadi. Anyone else? Pritido rajna. Kadayamiti satpatahe. Amarato visamprito. Vishnuratena samsadi. Upamantrito rajna. Kadayamiti satpatahe. Visamprito. Vishnuratena samsadi. Ladies. Vishnuratena samsadi. Anyone else? Saupamantrito rajna. Kadayamiti satpatahe. Samprito. Vishnuratena samsadi. Sutta Uvacha. Sri Sutta Goswami said, Sa, he, Sukadev Goswami, Upamantritaha, thus being inquired, Rajna, by the king, Katayam, in the topics, iti, thus, Satpatehe, of the highest truth, Brahmarata, Sukadev Goswami, Vrisham, very much, Prita, pleased, Vishnuratena, by Maharaj Parikshit, Samsiti, in the meeting. Translation. Sutta Goswami said, thus, Sukadev Goswami, being invited by Maharaj Parikshit to speak on the topics of Lord Shri Krishna with devotees, was very much pleased. Srila Prabhupada's purport. Srimad Bhagavatam can be legitimately discussed only among the devotees of the Lord. As the Bhagavad Gita was authoritatively discussed between Lord Krishna and Arjuna, the Lord and the devotee, respectively. Similarly, Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the postgraduate study of the Bhagavad Gita, can also be discussed between scholars and devotees like Sukadeva Goswami and Maharaj Pariksit. Otherwise, the real taste of the nectar cannot be relished. Sukadeva Goswami was pleased with Maharaj Pariksit because he was not at all tired of hearing of the topics of the Lord and was more and more anxious to hear them on and on with interest. Foolish interpreters unnecessarily tackle the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam when they have no access to the subject matter. There is no use in non-devotees meddling with the two topmost Vedic literatures, and therefore Sankaracharya did not touch Srimad Bhagavatam for commentation. In his commentation on the Bhagavad Gita, Sripad Sankaracharya accepted Lord Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but later on he commented on the impersonal view. But being conscious of his position, he did not comment on the Srimad Bhagavatam. Sukadeva Goswami was protected by Lord Krishna, Viday Brahma Vaivarta Purana, and therefore he is known as Brahmarata. And Srimad Pariksit Maharaj was protected by Vishnu, and thus he was known as Vishnurata. As devotees of the Lord, they are always protected by the Lord. It is clear also in this connection that Vishnurata should hear Srimad Bhagavatam from Brahmarata and no one else, because others misrepresent the transcendental knowledge and thus spoil one's valuable time. Om Agyan Timidandasya Ganajana Salakaya Chaksun Militam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gaudamani Prachadine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Pasyatya De Sitarine Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Vanchakalpatarubhishya Kripa Sindhu Bhevacha Gitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo. So here we're coming to the end of the chapter of Canto 2, chapter number 8. It's simply verse after verse series of questions presented by Maharaj Pariksit to Sukadeva Goswami. Those questions are all about Krishna, the absolute truth, the cosmological arrangement, and everything related to devotional activities and philosophical knowledge based on transcendental topics. He's interested, and this is the nature of a Vaishnava. They want to know more and more. A serious devotee wants to know everything about Krishna consciousness, about the process of devotional service, about and especially about Krishna. They never get tired of hearing, and they want to know more and more and more, because this knowledge is a parusha, it's transcendental. It is coming directly from the Lord through the pure devotees of the Lord. And therefore, it has the potent effect to raise one consciousness above the material energy and into the realm of the spiritual energy. Transcendental knowledge is, what we say, not part of this material world. The three modes of material nature make up the activities of this material world. And within there are many categories of knowledge. But above that is the supreme category of all knowledge, which elevates one's consciousness to the transcendental plane. In other words, one becomes God conscious or Krishna conscious. And the knowledge that is available in unlimited, as Krishna is also unlimited. The knowledge about Krishna and the knowledge about devotional service to Krishna is also of the category of unlimitedness. And here we're hearing that there is a certain qualification in order to receive this knowledge. There's a certain qualification to impart the knowledge. One has to be connected to the Supreme Lord in devotion. Prabhupada continues in many of his statements to what we say, help us to understand that there are many people who speak on spiritual topics, but are not qualified to speak on spiritual topics. They read some books, or they have some desire to gain some pecuniary, or what you might say, some financial gain. So they make a show. And the people come, and they give some cloth, some food, some money, something to the speaker. And the speaker, he just reads something from the Shastras, and people go home feeling that we have got something, although they can't remember anything. And even if they do remember, they don't know how to use it anyway, because the person is not qualified. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati would use the example of licking the outside of a honey bottle. If you see a jar of honey and you look, oh, it looks so nice. But then you want to taste the honey, but you think, well, I can see it, so let me just lick it up right now without opening the bottle. You get no taste at all. So these are the personalities who adopt this in a pretentious way to put themselves in a position of representing Sukadev Goswami and Maharaj Parikshit by speaking Srimad Bhagavatam. They call it Bhagavad Saptaha. There is authorized Bhagavad Saptaha when it's done by Vaishnavas with the intention to glorify the Lord and uplift the hearers to a higher consciousness or Krishna consciousness. Then it is bona fide. But many use it simply for occupational gain. That's all. So here, Prabhupada wants to make a very interesting point. He said when the knowledge was being transmitted from Krishna to Arjuna, both were qualified. Arjuna was a devotee of the Lord, and a pure devotee of the Lord. And Krishna obviously is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the speaker and the hearer who are highly qualified, that means the transmission of knowledge is perfect. And we see, after Arjuna had so many apparent doubts about his duty, Krishna clarified all his duty as he asked various types of questions. And this point is very important. Prabhupada said we should ask questions. We should hear, and we should try to understand. But if there's any slight misunderstanding or need for clarification, one should do that in order to receive the knowledge perfectly or with the proper understanding, because knowledge is like a weapon that cuts through the illusion of material life. Material life also has its categories of knowledge, but that knowledge just binds us more and more to a hard struggle to somehow maintain the body and the mind and the extensions of the body and mind, which are known as society, family, country, like that. That knowledge just causes one to take birth, life after life in the material world. Transcendental knowledge frees one from all of the encumbrances caused by the three modes of material nature. Mode, the word mode, is also synonymous with the word rope. As mode and rope, guna means mode, and guna also means rope. So the modes are like rope, they tie you up. What do they tie you up? They tie you up to the idea that you can find happiness through activities based on the body and mind in relationship to the objects of the senses. Or we might use a very simple form, sense gratification. But there is spiritual sense gratification, which is transcendental. The senses become purified. Why? Because they work under the direction of the spiritual energy, and that spiritual energy is directed by Krishna, who is the master of the senses. He's called Rishikesha. Rishikesha, Rishikena, Sevana, Bhakti, Uttama. By hearing transcendental knowledge from a qualified person, that means the pure devotee, or those who represent perfectly the pure devotee, that knowledge will bring one to the platform of transcendence or freedom from material. And that knowledge works to develop a type of consciousness that becomes the characteristic of the hearer. Transcendental knowledge becomes part of you. You develop those qualities based on understanding and applying that knowledge. And so we have here a very interesting commentary here by Srila Prabhupada. He talks also about Sripad Sankaracharya. Now, who is Sankaracharya? He's Lord Shiva. And who is Lord Shiva? Vaishnavanam Yadashambhu. He's the greatest of all Vaishnavas. And therefore, he's glorified in that way. But he had what we say, a very difficult service to do. And so he had to present himself as something that he wasn't in order to rid the world of some illusion. But in ridding the world of some illusion, he added another illusion. Hare Krishna. Buddhism is basically teaches that ultimately you can become successful by practicing the principle of Buddhism. And what is that success? You become nothing. Isn't that interesting? How to become nothing. Now, if you're something, you suffer. But if you're nothing, you can't suffer. So that's the philosophy. Become nothing and free yourself from suffering. But how can you become nothing when you are already something? So that, of course, Buddha was also Krishna. But he came to teach people or to encourage people to stop using the Vedas for animal slaughter simply for sense gratification. They were misusing the animal sacrifices, weren't following the rules and regulations, and just surreptitiously killing animals based on Vedic knowledge, but not even understanding the process. They were chanting the mantras, but they weren't even qualified. Everyone was doing it. And Krishna is very kind to all living entities. So he wanted to stop this unnecessary animal killing. So he incarnated as Buddha to teach ahimsa, nonviolence. But he didn't teach about the personality of Godhead. He taught about good qualities only. So Buddhism, many of it, is by basically somewhat atheism. Prabhupada also speaks about that in some of his statements, because there's no conception of God, nor is there a clear worship of God. So, therefore, Sankaracharya, to get people back onto the Vedas, because Buddha said, forget the Vedas, because you're using the Vedas in the wrong way. If you're using something in the wrong way, and you can't teach people the right way, you say, forget the whole thing and start something new. That was Buddha. But now Sankaracharya, he comes. What does he do? He says he brings you back on the Vedas, but not completely with the complete transcendental knowledge. He brings you to the level of impersonalism, which is also a principle of spiritualism, but not the complete. It's the incomplete part of spiritualism, because God is both personal and impersonal. And without the impersonal, there is no completion of the absolute truth. The absolute truth must contain both personal and impersonal qualities like that. But he emphasized impersonalism. And as Prabhupada said here, because he was Lord Shiva, he gave a commentary on Bhagavad Gita, which is called, what was that commentary again? On Bhagavad Gita by Sankarsha Sariraka Bhasya. Sariraka Bhasya. And he basically interpreted Bhagavad Gita in an impersonalist way. He knew about Srimad Bhagavatam, but because he was a Vaishnava, he didn't touch it. Prabhupada says that here. He had some, what we say, respectability. So he didn't touch Srimad Bhagavatam. But in his impersonal teachings, he also said to his followers, you're all fools. Because you don't know that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Bhaja Govinda, Bhaja Govinda, Bhaja Govinda, Mudha Mate. Mudha. Worship Govinda, worship Govinda. What's the rest of it? Who knows the rest of that verse? Raksha, Nase, I can't remember the whole verse.
Nahi nahi rakshati dukaran karane.
Nahi na rakshati dukaran karan. Right?
Yes.
Thank you very much. That was Sri Devi. Thank you. And yeah, so that was, he said, just give up your foolishness and worship the Supreme Lord who's known as Govinda. But they couldn't understand it, and they're not even following their guru. So and then Prabhupada gives some gentlemanly qualifications to Sripad Shankaracharya that he didn't touch Srimad Bhagavatam because he understood Bhagavatam is the pure Purana, Amalam Purana, and it's all about the name, fame, form, glories of the absolute truth, complete, ending with the highest aspect of the absolute truth, the pastimes of Krishna and Sri Vrindavan, like that. So here, the essential point of this particular is that there must be qualifications to hear. So what is the qualification to hear? Is it just interest to hear? That's one of the qualifications. One of the qualifications is to try to assimilate and to hear with what we call rapt attention, or hear with the idea to understand what is being spoken. Not in one ear and out the other ear. That's not hearing. And that's what happens. Just sometimes, sometimes we say to the devotees, did you go to class today? Yeah. It's a nice class, yeah. What was it about? Give me a time to think here. We missed the whole thing. When I was in New Vrindavan, we did a little experiment in order to help people retain what they heard in class. You would have to, during the day, approach another devotee and say, what was class about? Everyone was required to approach at least one devotee and ask them. And that way, Krishna Katha was started. And if you didn't be able to answer, you were sleeping. You weren't there in class. So, yeah, so the qualification to hear, as Srila Prabhupada says, but he gives the qualification in the Srimad Bhagavatam in the first canto, third chapter, verse number 44. He says, in order to hear with rapt attention, one has to be pure in mind. In order to be pure in mind, one has to be pure in action, activities. Because the mind will become polluted by wrong activities, and therefore the mind cannot be considered pure. Pure in mind, pure in activities. Then he goes on to say, pure in activity means pure in eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. These are the four restricted bodily activities, and they must be regulated. according to ashram, according to the guidance given by the spiritual master. And then he says, then one can hear with rapt attention. But then Prabhupada understands the Western mind, and he said, even if you haven't reached that level, just try to hear. Somehow, try to hear. And what is the qualification of hearing? And what is the results of hearing? The results of hearing is two things. You get questions based on what you hear, or you get realization based on what you hear. So you say, if you understand it, it becomes clear, that is called realization. But if there is the slightest reason, just like many times when the speaker speaks, they don't explain everything. They just make the statements. They leave it up to the class or the devotees to try to understand it and then give questions. And that brings out more and more of the philosophical points. Bodhiantas parasparam, katyantam shimam nityam tushyanti cha ramanti cha. This is the activities of the Vaishnavas, to hear and chant the glories of the Lord in the association of devotees. So when we hear the classes or we hear the subject matters, that stimulates the mind on that subject, and then we start speaking about it, and you get more out of the questions and answers than you get out of the class many times, because it goes deeper into the principles that was given in the lecture. So it's always, what we say, imperative that devotees hear very carefully and try to understand. And if there's any lack of understanding, Srila Prabhupada was saying this yesterday, I was listening. He said, you must get that clarification by asking questions. And you see the whole Srimad Bhagavatam, what is it? It's simply questions and answers. Here we have Maharaj Parikshit asking questions. This whole chapter is simply questions. That's all. The final verses are coming now, beginning with this one. Now Sukadeva Goswami is so satisfied. He's hearing all of the questions, and he's remembering every question in the same order that he heard it. His mind is so sharp that he doesn't take out his, computer and type out the questions and look back or write some notes down. He's hearing the questions in the order, and he's going to answer them in the same order. He doesn't miss one question. That's a qualified speaker. They can retain anything they hear automatically. Nowadays, we have so many assistants in order to bring about remembrances. But still, the idea is to remember. And when you remember, based on what you hear, then get clarifications for further understanding. That is required. And you go through the whole Bhagavatam, and it's not only Maharaj Parikshit and Sukadeva Goswami. You'll see King Yudhisthira and Narada Muni. There's discussions. There's discussions between Vishnu and the Prachetas. There's different combinations of hearing and receiving from different personalities, and that's the entire Bhagavatam. It's only questions and answers, questions and answers, questions and answers, questions and answers. There is one particular spiritual process. It says that you don't have to ask any questions. All you have to do is be. You got it? Be. And if you be, you understand everything. Just be. They say questions and answers is like when you ask a question, you dig in a hole. And when you're answering, you put the dirt back in. So there's no need for questions and answers. Got it? No, I don't either. So the point is that yes, this knowledge is a power shot. It means comes from the Supreme Lord. This knowledge is dynamic. That what you read is just a part part of the knowledge that's being given to you within that reading capacity. There's so much more. Srila Prabhupada was talking to his servant Shruti Kirti. Prabhupada had the Nectar of Devotion in front of him. And he was saying, and he said, if you just read one page of this book, you can be fully Krishna conscious. One page. Then he went on to say, no, actually, if you read one paragraph, you can be fully Krishna conscious. Then he said, and he kept looking at the page. Then he said, actually, if you read one sentence, you can be fully Krishna conscious. Now, is Prabhupada joking? Then he goes on to finalize everything. He said, and if you read one word, you could be fully Krishna conscious. That means, what is that reading? It means complete understanding of that knowledge. Even if you understand one word completely, it is so powerful, it'll bring your consciousness to the level of liberation immediately. Because this knowledge is not part of this material world. It's coming from the Supreme Lord into the hearts of the pure devotees who understand it through the power of their own devotional service, get realizations, and give it back to us in various philosophical ways. So this knowledge is unlimited. We have to be eager to hear. We have to be eager to hear. If we're not eager to hear, we haven't begun our Krishna consciousness yet. We haven't begun our Krishna consciousness. And when the eagerness to hear starts to actualize or manifest within your mind and heart, then you start getting questions. Then the questions will come. And they're good questions, not like, what's for prasadam today? That's not so bad, but it's not going to really help you in your transcendental, service. Because whatever it is, it's still transcendental. Doesn't matter what it is. It's prasadam. So the point is that we want to ask those questions that are just like Srila Prabhupada. He uses himself as an example. He said, my spiritual master, he spoke in such high philosophical terminologies. Many times I didn't understand what he said, but I would always like to hear. I would hear and hear. And then when Prabhupada was recommended by his godbrother for initiation to Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, the thing Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati immediately said, yes, I have noted he likes to hear. That is a very high and very important qualification, because from hearing comes speaking, from hearing comes remembrance, from hearing comes serving, from hearing becomes all of the angas of bhakti. Everything is based on the process of hearing. And hearing accompanies all of the 8 other angas of bhakti. And we have Maharaj Pariksit. All he did was hear for 7 days from Sukadeva Goswami. He asked questions based on what he heard, and then he continued to hear and at the end, you'll see it in the 12th canto, after he has received all of the knowledge from Sukadeva Goswami. Sukadeva Goswami says, Maharaj, how do you feel? He said, I feel fearless. Transcendental knowledge will bring you to the platform of fearlessness. Everyone in the material world is fearful. As Srila Prabhupada says, from Lord Indra down to the Indra Gopajur, which is the smallest of all living entities. Everyone is fearful. Why? Because everyone is afraid of losing whatever they have, even the body that they have. But a devotee can transcend all of the elements of material energy, including fear itself, simply by transcendental knowledge. There was one great philosopher from the Greek tradition. His name was Socrates. He was preaching reincarnation. And at that time, the church was against reincarnation. They didn't like his preaching, but he was out there preaching. They warned him because he had a position in society. He was a philosopher. He had students. They told him, if you don't stop preaching this wrong understanding, then we're going to have to take action. But he didn't. He was fearless. He kept preaching because, he understands this is the truth and people should hear the truth. And so he continued, and finally they put him in jail, and they said, now we're going to punish you by, you're going to have to drink this poison called hemlock. And then they said to him, and what should we do with you once you die? He said, as far as my body's concerned, you could do anything you want, but as far as I'm concerned, you have to catch me. He knew he wasn't his body. So that's not just a theoretical precept. That's something that we have to actually come to the point of realizing. And it can be realized by hearing transcendental subject matters. You can come to the platform of realizing, I am not this body. And that's the preliminary knowledge. We hear it theoretically, we understand it, we repeat it, but how much do we actually realize it? But through the process of hearing and applying the knowledge in devotional service, then it's not a matter of theory anymore. It's a matter of the qualities that we have adopted, and we could become fearless. I'm not this body. Whatever happens to the body does not happen to me. I'm different. So this is this principle of hearing from the proper authority, and we might say the qualified authority, is the foundation for elevation to the transcendental level. And sometimes we see devotees, they like to go a little outside of the authorized process for hearing. And other people speak about Krishna or philosophical teachings, and they think, let me see what it's like. But Prabhupada said, if they say one thing different than what I am teaching, you'll become confused. And you can also become somewhat, you can lose your faith in Srila Prabhupada's books. Because you'll see, when Prabhupada said this, and they said this, and this seems to be more practical or more understandable than what Prabhupada said. Therefore, maybe Prabhupada's wrong. Yeah, we hear that. So therefore, just like if you're married, chastity in marriage is a very glorious and high quality. And chastity means one partner. Not, well, I have a wife, and she's a woman, and there are other women too, so it doesn't matter. That's unchaste. So therefore, when we see the quality of chastity to the teachings of Srila Prabhupada, Srila Bhakti Swami Maharaj, he went out of his way, and he gave so many classes, so many lectures, seminars, to show that whatever you want to know about Krishna consciousness is there in Srila Prabhupada's books. You don't have to go anywhere else. He wanted to keep the devotees within the category, the understanding of what Prabhupada gave us is sufficient. And even beyond that, we can't even understand even that much. But wanderlust is there, going from place to place, looking for new ideas. Now, what can I hear from this person? Can I hear from this person? Well, it sounds just like. But Prabhupada made so many comparisons that people speak similarly, but they have another motivation. What is their motivation? To gain followers, to gain some pecuniary gain from their activities. In other words, they're not pure in their motivations. They're not giving knowledge for the sake of knowledge, but they're giving knowledge so they can gain something from that. But that is not Guru. Guru is simply a representation of Krishna, who is the personification of all knowledge. And therefore, they're simply trying to bring Krishna in the form of transcendental knowledge. And the best way is Srimad Bhagavatam. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavatam, as Prabhupada said, everything's in the Bhagavatam. You don't have to go anywhere else. He said this one scripture. What did Bhaktivinoda Thakur say? If you take all of the books in the world and you throw them in the ocean, there's only Bhagavatam left, there's no more. Bhaktisiddhanta said it similar, but a little different. He said, if you take all of the books in the world and you burn them, and there's only Chaitanya Charitamrita left, there's no loss. So what's the difference between Chaitanya Charitamrita and Bhagavatam? No difference. Because Chaitanya Charitamrita is living Bhagavatam. It's the same thing. It's the life of Bhagavan, which is Bhagavatam also. No difference. These two scriptures are the scriptures of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. And of course, we add Bhagavad Gita as preliminary, as Prabhupada says here. He mentions Bhagavad Gita is preliminary, or what we say, prior to understanding Bhagavatam. So we need also a working knowledge of Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam. And Prabhupada said 4 books. And he added Nectar Devotion, which is the personification of the internal energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In other words, I made this statement one time and then I got challenged. I had to find a backup. I said in one class, I said, Nectar Devotion is non-different from Srimati Radharani. And Srimad Bhagavatam is not different than Krishna. Chaitanya Charitamrita is not different than Lord Chaitanya. Nectar of Devotion is not different than Radharani. So I got challenged. Where did you hear that? I had no reference. I heard it from another great soul in our movement. And so I simply repeated that. But then I thought, I got to exonerate myself because I'm getting criticized. And after some research, I found that it's actually Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati that said that. That Nectar Devotion is the personification of Srimati Radharani, which is the internal energy of the Lord. What is the internal energy of the Lord? It manifests in pure devotional service, which is obviously Bhakti Yoga. And what is that? Bhakti? Ananya Bhakti. That Bhakti that is not mixed with karma, gyan, yoga, or any other forms of spiritual principles for elevation. It is pure. And Bhagavatam is the personification of pure devotional service. So we should hear Bhagavatam every day, read Bhagavatam and discuss it amongst the devotees. And you can also distribute Bhagavatam too. Prabhupada, the devotee said to Prabhupada, when Prabhupada will start printing the different volumes, and he said, distribute my books. They said, Bhagavatam too? He said, yeah, but the karmis can't understand that. Prabhupada said, let them, they're going to read my purports, then they get the understanding. That's all. So if they read the purports, they'll get the clarification, at least to some degree, that this knowledge is actually very interesting and it's also very spiritual. So yeah, when Prabhupada did the Nectar of Instructions, which is it's a summation of Nectar of Devotion, 11 verses. And it takes you through the whole process of bhakti in a very PowerPoint way, all the way ending up with Krishna, with the realization of the highest aspect of devotional service, Srimati Radharani, in her mood of devotion to Sri Krishna in Sri Vrindavan Dham. And then devotee said, well, we can't distribute this on the street. Prabhupada said, why not? distributed because Prabhupada had written so many purports, and his purports clarify, help us to understand everything. Even though this knowledge, even us, we cannot even start. If we were to read the translations, how much would we get from it? And in Srila Prabhupada's commentary. So the commentary, not commentary, the realizations of the pure devotees bring the knowledge clear and clearer and clearer and understandable, along with understanding the application of that knowledge, which is bringing that knowledge to realization. Because we have to not only hear it, understand it, and apply it in our life. An application comes by hearing from your spiritual master. How do I serve? What is the best way I can serve? And then that knowledge becomes applicable in the form of devotional service. And what is the result? Realization. And realization is Krishna consciousness. We can't stay on the theoretical level. We have to come to the realized level. Theory is the beginning. It's a way to move you in the right direction. But realization actually is Krishna consciousness. It's called Vigyan, that knowledge which is what we say realized. And that's where you can get that from Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay, so what time is it now? 9:10. Okay. Any comments or questions? We have people online and we have people here. So those of you who are online, we also have about 50 people or 50 devotees that have come and are sitting in the temple. So we're going to take questions from both categories.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. We have got 42 devotees online as well today. It's really nice to see everyone joining.
Okay, we're going to start off with one question here.
Okay.
And then we'll go back and forth, see if you have a question from your side.
Sure.
Ananya means unalloyed, pure, not mixed.
Not mixed with karma, gyan,
Yoga, anything pure bhakti. Just like what makes something valuable. It's not its rarity. A diamond is, there are many things that are rare that are not valuable. Certain rare diseases. But a diamond becomes valuable because it's pure. There's no alloy there. Then when the gem is not mixed with any other alloy, then it's pure. That's purity. That makes it valuable. So this for pure devotional service is ayanya sita sunya gyana karma and avritam anukulena krishna silanam bhakti uttama. Free from karma, gyan, and yoga, the desire to serve Krishna with a desire to please Krishna. You have to have a desire to please Krishna along with desire to serve Krishna. That makes it pure. I want to offer this to Krishna so he'll be happy to receive my offering. That's pure activity in devotional service. The demons, they also please Krishna because Krishna likes to fight. And so he fights with the demons and he kills the demons. They get some benefit and Krishna enjoys fighting. But they don't get bhakti because they have no intention to please Krishna. But although they did please Krishna. So this is Rupa Goswami explains. What are the principles of pure devotional service? Sukapa, have any questions online?
Yes, Guru Maharaj. Vrishabha Prabhu has got a question. Vrishabha Prabhu, do you want to ask?
Hare Krishna, please accept my humble obeisances of glory to Srila Prabhupada, Gurudev, and all the Vaishnavas. Thank you very much, Maharaj, for getting a comment of getting attached to hearing. I will try to develop this more. I have one question regarding purity of eating, because you were mentioning purity of the mind, purity of action, purity of eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. So many times when we go to Sunday feast program or any sangha, it seems like there is sumptuous prasadam, and I'm just thinking, what does it mean, like purity of eating in the regards of many heavy things late in the nights, and is that also what is meant? I'm trying to go deeper into this topic of pure eating.
Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita, one should not eat too much or eat too little, sleep too much or sleep too little. And then in the next verse, he says, one should be temperate. And temperate means moderate in eating, sleeping, working, and recreation. So he gives that. But then also purity in eating means just to accept Krishna Prasada and nothing else, nothing that is not offered to Krishna in devotion. And not too much and not too little. And to meditate on what you're eating as this is Krishna in the form of foodstuff. It's so nice, and this is another way to experience your association with Krishna in the form of transcendental. This one devotee asked Srila Prabhupada one time, he said, Prabhupada, you're saying that Krishna is non-different than prasadam. That means, can we just simply take prasadam all day? And then go back to Godhead? Prabhupada said, only if you understand in a realized way that this is not different than Krishna. But if you don't try it. So if you have that absolute understanding that this is Krishna, then it's not a matter of eating anymore, it's a matter of devotion. Okay?
Yes, thank you, Maharaj. Thank you very much.
Okay, we're going to move on to the next question. Any more questions here?
Thank you so much for this class hearing. I have one silly doubt, that
Silly?
silly doubt.
Silly doubt.
Yeah, you were.
All doubts are silly. We have to make them free from being silly.
So my question was, Lord Buddha is also incarnation of Krishna, so he's avatar and he's God. So Buddhists must be worshipping Buddha, so they must be worshipping God, right, Maharaj? So how can they become
Yeah.
Buddhists?
They're getting benefit because there is a gap to secreting, unknowingly performing devotion. They
Guru
don't,
Maharaj,
they
would
don't,
you mind repeating question because we don't know the question? Sorry. So
the question was that Buddha is Krishna. And then Jayadeva Goswami mentions the Das avatars, and one of them is Buddha. And he is actually a manifestation of the Supreme Lord for particular mission. So he's asking, well, what kind of benefit do the Buddhists get from worshiping Buddha?
Okay.
But they don't put too much emphasis on worshiping Buddha. They put emphasis on worshiping the principles that Buddha's taught. The eightfold, what is it? The eightfold process of mysticism or something. There's like 8 qualities that they formulate. They focus on qualities mostly, and not so much on. I mean, if you study Buddhism, there's how many different types of Buddhism? So many. Hinayana, Theravada, Zen Buddha, so many different kinds of Buddha, and they all have different philosophical understandings. So, but they focus more on qualities. In other words, they develop the mode of goodness, or they try to act within the mode of goodness. And they also honor Buddha. There's a deity in Buddhism called Kuan Yin. And in Japan, it's male, and in Hong Kong, it's female. Same personality, Kuan Yin. So they also have some personal form of worship also. They have the bodhisattvas, which are the representatives of the absolute truth. They're different personalities that represent different qualities. Like one represents humility, another one represents tolerance, another one represents detachment, like this. So they're very much enthusiastic to focus their attention on developing good qualities. Buddhists are very kind and generous. They're also very tolerant also. So there's some benefit, obviously. Any other questions? Okay. Prabhu, we have another question here. Okay, Mataji. Sukava, have another one lined up on?
Yes, Guru Maharaj. Sridevi Mataji has raised her hand.
Okay, we'll take her after we take Rasabila Singh here.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much for the wonderful class, Maharaj. So I just had a question, just like Buddhism came and then Sarvaj's philosophy and then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So can we understand it that this way that people were so much in illusion that it was Krishna's plans to gradually bring them to the mode of goodness, pure goodness?
No, it's to move them up ultimately to transcendence. Because if you take it beyond Sankancharya, then you have Ramanujacharya, then you have Madhvacharya, then you have Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So the Lord manifests his teachings in a very sequential way according to the level of people's understanding. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is a Chintya Veda Veda Tattva, that the absolute truth is not just one, but it's two, and it's also one and two at the same time, simultaneously one and different. And you see the other ones, impersonalism is monism, then you go to Madhvacharya teaches dualism. There's different levels of spiritual teachings, but they're not complete until you get to Mahaprabhu's teaching. That the absolute truth is one, but it's also different at the same time. And it's achintya. Jiva Goswami says, the absolute truth is not achintya, and it's not the absolute truth, because achintya means inconceivable. Cannot be understood simply by philosophical speculation. It comes by realization. Any of the brahmacharis in the back there have any questions? Mahotsaha. Okay. I always get your name wrong. Mahotsaha. We're honored by the presence of Mahotsaha. He's the #1 book distributor in the world. He's sitting here.
Yeah.
The quote that you were giving Sri Prabhupada, that even one word can make their devotion. Did he also say that about the Krishna book?
The way I heard it from Shruti Kirti Prabhu, he's the one that was there. I remember it as nectar devotion. But I could be wrong and say that Prabhupada was talking about Krishna book.
Is it possible he said it on 2 different occasions?
I one incident, and that was what I heard from 30 years ago. So
It seems like Prabhupada lives his own purpose.
Prabhupada would read his own books, and he would also laugh when he would hear about how the Krishna is killing the demons. One time Prabhupada was in LA, it was in the evening, and Prabhupada would have this evening darshan where he would invite the devotees to come, and he would read, mostly from Krishna book. And then the devotees were a little amazed to see how animated and how happy Prabhupada was reading from his own books. And then Prabhupada could understand their mind. He said, these are not my words. I'm simply putting them on paper. These are the words of Krishna. That's all. So the pure devotee is a medium for the knowledge coming directly from the absolute truth. Yeah, thank you. Nice point. Okay, you have another question from Sri Devi?
Yes, Sridevi Mataji, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Sukhava. Dear Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. This lecture which you have given, Maharaj, about hearing from the pure devotee or the representative of the pure devotee, to me is very, very meaningful, because I cannot remember how many bogus things I listened to before I received Prabhupada's mercy. So hearing from the pure devotee is the only way to get the real knowledge. Now, saying that, I want to ask Maharaj, if people say, but we are not pure devotees and we are just, giving lectures here, there, everywhere. So what is the guarantee that we will get any benefit from hearing you, Mataji? Because you're just, you're just another devotee. You're not, on that platform. So when people say like this, what should we reply to them?
Prabhupada uses himself as an example. He says, I'm simply repeating what I heard from my spiritual master. I never changed anything. I never added anything. I never, subtracted anything. He said, I'm giving the knowledge as received. So if we represent, and therefore in order to, what we say, consummate that, we have to quote scripture. We have to quote the acharyas when we give the classes, not just speak something. You have to back it up by higher authority. And then you're representing the pure devotee, you're representing Krishna. So 2 and 2 is 4, 3 and 1 is 4. So you might argue, well, 2 and 2 is 4, not 3 and 1. But those who, what we say, represent the pure knowledge, they can also be considered to be persons that are qualified to speak. Otherwise, where's the disciplic succession? It stops. Yeah. So we hear and we understand, we apply, and we get under, and we serve in that way, and then we become qualified to represent our spiritual master.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. That is very helpful.
Okay, anything else? Yeah, Prabhu. We have a question here on Sri Devi, why aren't you sitting here?
Guru Maharaj, I'm far away even from the temple. I'm in a place called Troy in Ridhana's house. And it's very difficult to get a ride anywhere, Guru Maharaj, because we are so far away. I'm so sorry.
We'll forgive you.
Okay.
Okay.
My apologies to all the devotees there. Kamal Krishna Prabhu, Manjari Gopi. Cannot wait to meet them and hug them.
Two chance later. We have devotee cuddling program.
Okay, I look forward to that.
Cow cuddling and devotee cuddling also. Prabhu.
Please accept my humble obeisances and advocacy. That's the advocacy of us. It's very divine, very stimulating class, very grateful. So, Maharaj, you mentioned so many amazing things. One thing you mentioned that how when you serve um, Krishna under the guidance of a pure devotee, then you're under the internal energy of the Lord. So my question is that how can we realize that? Because yes, we do so many services, and if it is really true, I mean, if one can actually live up to that, then one can make very rapid advancement.
How to realize you're representing your spiritual master when you do your devotional service? Well, the realization starts with following the instructions and understanding how to not only do the service, but to carry out the service in the best possible way. Put quality in your service, and then that is what gives bhakti its attractiveness. Do it in the best possible way, not just to get it done. When we just try to do or get something done, we lose the connection. Or we minimize, or we don't get full connection. When we realize we're serving on behalf of on the instructions of our spiritual master in order to become purified and ultimately become qualified to ultimately reach the platform of pure devotional service or love of God. So therefore, blind following, as Prabhupada said, and absurd qualities are rejected. So following blindly, following blindly the right thing is all right, but it doesn't give you, you don't really get the understanding. You have to know why you're doing what you're doing and how best to do it. Think about it. We reflect. It's one of the things that devotees should practice. At the end of the day, reflect back on whatever you did today and see where you could improve, see what you could have eliminated, see what other things you could have adapted. Got to do an inventory on your activities. This helps you to, improve in your devotional service. Just getting the service done, there's benefit, but the full benefit comes when we consciously apply the knowledge and do the activity. And understand, you're not doing it simply for your own purification. You're doing it to please the spiritual master. You're doing it to please Krishna.
And Maharaj, you mentioned also another really amazing point. You said that when you hear from pure devotee, then knowledge becomes revealed and the consciousness becomes elevated to the spiritual nature. So
if you're actually hearing,
so that hearing means like systematic, regular hearing and
right,
striving to apply what.
I'll give you a personal example that I had. Maybe that will help. When we read the books and we hear from the authorities, you're not this body. How many times did we hear that? So I was hearing it over and over. Then one day I was at a particular place and I was listening to Srila Prabhupada's lecture. And Prabhupada was speaking, and on that point, and he was saying, "You're not this body." And then I heard it. That was the first time I heard it. I got it. I got, yeah, that's it. So there comes a point when you continue to hear you'll get to the point where you realize it. And then along with your practice of devotional service, that has to be there also. So that's why hearing should go on always. So I think I forgot it since then, but but I did hear it one time. Oh, you're not this. Yeah, that's right. I got it. So that's called realization, not just theoretical understanding. So that's bhakti, when we actually realize it. And that'll come through continuous hearing and through serving the pure devotee. Both. Okay.
So I have a question that you said reading Prabhupada books will help. So I wanted to ask one question. Should we only read Prabhupada books or we can read the books of the disciples of Prabhupada?
Well, there is one statement in the Nectar Devotion, one should not read too many books. So limit yourself in that category. You can hear from maybe your spiritual master's books. You can hear from Prabhupada's books. And maybe someone else who you were very much inspired by. But not that you have to read all the books in this God. It's not. Your consciousness will never be able to focus. It's good to hear from one or two sources that are giving the same knowledge, maybe in a slightly different way. That's nice. This is my understanding from the practical point of view. There's devotees who like to surf the net, right? To see what's going on in this kind around the world. But it's those who focus will actually gain much more than those who try to go everywhere and anywhere. Although it's all the, you might say it's the variety of the same thing, but ultimately, even Srila Prabhupada cautioned us not to hear from his spiritual master, because he said you can get from what my spiritual master says from me. But he did say you can read Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur's books, particularly. He mentions a few. And if you want to hear from the Acharyas, Srimad Bhagavatam is full of commentaries on the Acharyas. Okay. Sukava, any more questions?
Yes, Guru Maharaj. Rishabh Prabhu has raised his hand and I've got a question as well after that, please.
Are we going too far as first time, Yugala? We're okay? Or should we stop? 5 minutes? Okay. We have 5 more minutes.
Okay, Rishabh Prabhu.
Krishna Maharaj, when we are studying the books and we are preaching, I just want to know how to be sure if I'm speaking from realization or from mental speculation, how to distinguish these two.
I'll talk to you privately about that.
Oh my God. Okay, I'm gonna get it. Thank you, Maharaj.
He understood the answer. Yeah, he's Sukama.
Yeah, thank you, Bishop Ruben. Thank you, Maharaj. I have a question. When you mentioned, Guru Maharaj, that we can become fearless with realization, how do we become fearless of the physical harm? We can be fearless with the emotional and mental, but I'm not 100% sure. Please, can you just?
How can we be fearless on all levels. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Well, when you realize you're not this body, then you realize, what is that fearlessness? It's not foolishness that you do things that are, what we say, outside of the proper behavior. But you're not afraid to engage in devotional service. Not sometimes, like the spiritual master will give you instructions, like go to another country and start Krishna consciousness. And so if you have full faith in the instructions of the spiritual master, then simply by his instructions, Krishna will protect you. But if you do it on your own, without getting the, what we say, permission or the blessings of the spiritual teachers, then you might still be a little bit unsure about whether what you're doing is actually good or not. So then you become a little fearful, both fearful of the activity and fearful of what may happen because I'm doing it. So you just have to somehow or other carefully follow the instructions of the spiritual master. Then you're safe.
Thank you.
Prabhupada did say, take a risk for Krishna, but don't take a risk that will jeopardize your Krishna consciousness.
That makes sense, yes.
Yeah, but you have to know what you can do beyond what is normal. At the same time, it's not going to cause you to fall down or to lose your footing in your practice of devotional service. Okay, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Ki jai. Lord Premanande.
Hare Krishna.
His Holiness Candramauli Swami Maharaj ki jai.
Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Glories to Guru Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Thank you very much.
Krishna.
Guru
Have a
Maharaj.
good day, all the devotees.
Glories to Santa devotees. Thank you very much, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you all for joining.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Which temple is Guru Maharaj at?
He is at Farrington.
Farmington Hills.
Yeah, Farrington Hill. Farrington Hill Temple.
Farmington Hills, Michigan.
Yeah, Farmington.
Shri Radha Gopi Jana Vallabha.
Would love to see the deities, but Guru Maharaj is hooked up.
When is the initiations happening?
Sunday around 11 o'clock, Prabhu. 11 o'clock Eastern time of US.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Bol. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.